I can make the intro as awkward as possible.
Please do. There's no intro though. It's supposed to be just. What does gaming mean to you, and how did you get into it, and when did you get into it?
What does gaming mean to me? How did I get into it? And when did I get into it? When I got into gaming, I don't remember because I've been playing games ever since I was young. I think 4 or 5. I think my first gaming stuff was those TV retro video games that you got bootleg. You could buy from random.
Are you talking about the Game Boy, or are you talking about something before that?
No, not the Game Boy. And
The Game Boy that you connected, not
yeah. We never had the original game. At least I didn't have the original Game Boy, but there were a lot of bootleg Game Boys that I think you know, right? Where you had to kind of
knockoffs.
you had to blow in the case and then put it in order to work. It was had like those 3 cables, and there was
Blow
dark.
the cassette so that
Yeah.
the dust comes out.
Yeah. So that's what I remember at the earliest. And then when I got in properly into video games is probably Diablo 2 and Diablo 2? Yeah, Diablo 2 and Warcraft 3. This is around 2000 and 2002 respectively, I think. 2002, 2003. Because that's when the games came out. Yeah, because
And since then, you've never looked back. You're still a gamer.
yeah. Because when Warcraft 3 came out, it's just that perspective of, I still remember starting the game with 1 unit, having going by that story. And then suddenly you can control that unit which has abilities, and then you can build around that a civilization. I'd already played Age of Empires by then. But the thought of that single units having personality was just mind blowing. And I don't know, it's just something kind of, I was like, oh shit, you can tell stories like this as well. So I was
So was that like the tipping point where you're like, no, fuck, this is something that I want to do for the rest of my life, and is that the point when gaming actually became larger than life for you?
that is the time when gaming became larger than life, but that is not the time when I said, hey, I will not I will only pursue gaming because I was like 7. I think. So it's not when you're that young, you're thinking 5, 6, 10 different things, right? But that was definitely what kind of I feel like if I had to put in one moment, it's that game, and then I think I kept going deeper and deeper and deeper after that, right? And yeah, eventually I decided not to look back and just stay there. What it means for me right now, I guess it's a career. I still love video games. I play a lot of video games. I think video games in essence are art. So I really appreciate video games the same way how someone who reads a lot of books would appreciate books, or how someone who watches a lot of movies would appreciate movies. I'm not a esports or a general gamer. How most Indian gamers I've seen play 1 to 3 games and stick to them, right? Whereas I played a lot, and I like playing different kinds of games. Whatever new comes out, I like kind of seeing it.
Right.
At least,
Yeah, I mean that's what, right? I think most gamers, they have this one main game that they play, and then one secondary game which they probably play in between queues or something like that. But yeah, they're loyal to that one game. But you're saying that you've always kept like exploring new genres and different kinds of games, and not like just sticking to one game for an extended period of time.
right? I never could. It was not like I was bad because I have 500 hours in CS:GO. I have probably 2,500 hours in Valorant. I've played a lot of multiplayer games also, not just FPS, different kinds. I played competitively in World of Warcraft for like 2 3 months as well, at the highest PvP rank things. I forget what they're called. Like there's rating, yeah. So played different kinds, but I could never stick. I could never stick also. That even if I wanted to, like I tried for some time. I was like, okay, I'll play Valorant for a long time. I'll stick to this. But then any new shiny game comes out, I was like, okay, new game. So that has been general habit, and yeah, that's
For me, it's been like the opposite because I've had these 3 or 4 games, I think, since the time I started, which was obviously again almost 18 to 20 years ago. And I've only had like 3 or 4 games that I've played over that span. Obviously, I've tried like here and there, but actually playing, I think it's just been 3 4 games over like 20 years, or 5 games maybe. But yeah, and of course, like I always so.
So when did you start gaming?
So that's a funny story actually. So I used to live on the 5th floor, and I used to have a friend who was like 6 7 years older to me, but he used to live on the 4th floor, like one floor below me, and I was very
He's
young.
like a dada.
Correct. So I used to go to his house,
Yeah.
every day after school. He used to come back, go to his house, and I used to see that he's always like playing something. So the first thing that I saw him playing was the PS1. No, actually Game Boy. The Game Boy that you connect, not the handheld one, but the one that you connect to
The
the
TV.
TV. And then I saw it evolve. Right? First, I used to see him play the Game Boy. Then I used to see him play the handheld Game Boy. Then I used to see him play the PS1, and then the PS2, right? And then the PC. So it was PS2, it was PS2, and then it was PC. And so that's how I got into gaming. And the first game I remember playing was obviously Pokemon on Game Boy. Uh, it was Pokemon Red, and it had god awful graphics.
Back then, I think
No, you didn't care about graphics.
back then it was also like, oh shit. I think the novelty of, oh shit, I can have my own Pokemon, and
Yeah.
Pokemon itself was like,
It was more
so
about that time. It was more about the gameplay, more about the experience rather than the graphics. People didn't actually care about how things looked that much. But anyway, so it started with that, and then I remember my first PC game that I played was Conquer Online. It was an MMO, and I spent some money on that because I took money from parents.
what time was this?
I think I was like 11 or 12 years old. Actually, no, that's not when I spent money. But I started playing when I was 11 or 12, and that's how basically that's how I went down the rabbit hole. And from then I've never looked back.
This is like 2002, 3.
Something. I mean, something around that. And the thing is, my entire life since I started playing games up until before going to college has been a constant struggle and fight between me and my parents and my grandparents. Like, you're wasting time, you're playing. It's just the regular story, right? Where it's a story in every household.
Yeah.
Like if you play games, obviously at that time, even now it's still there, but at that time there was zero to no knowledge, right, on what this can become.
Right.
So that constant struggle, constant fight, constant like screaming, that thing like was part of everyday life basically. And it continued till the time I went to college. So it spanned over a long time, And the thing is, I never gave up. Like, okay, so I was like, and so the first competitive game that I started playing, in which you actually compete with other people and not just playing yourself, was Smite. And
which you won internationally. When did you start playing?
I didn't win internationally. So I started playing Smite. I think it was 2010, right when the beta came out.
Right, this is when all the MOBA games were coming out, all the knockoffs like Heroes of New Earth.
Yeah.
Dota 2, I think, was just announced. It was not come out yet. League of Legends was a thing by then, I think. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, whenever the beta came, I think it was between 2010 and 12, and that's when I played first, and that was my first time playing against real people and not AI. Right? It was not.
But you did play.
I played.
Conquest.
I played an MMO, but the thing is, it was more PVE. Like it was less PvP and it was more PVE.
Right.
So it was not about test, and that was like a drug to me, right? Because I was like, fuck, I can prove to someone that I'm better than them. I always had that thing, that I'm fucking better than you, but I could never prove it. Right, and that gave me that. I was like, fuck, this is great, because I could finally tell people to like fuck off, know your place, whatever.
Right.
But
the surprising part is you did go from here to like official kind of like proper pro player, right? How was that? How did people find out? How do you apply for a tournament like?
So obviously when I started playing Smite, and way like into my Smite career, casual career, like I think 2016, 2012, 13, 14, I had no visibility of ever being able to play pro. So this is a very important thing that I keep sometimes it keeps coming back to me. So when I used to watch tournaments regularly for Smite, like every tournament I'm watching, sitting there from morning to night, watching every single match, every single minute, right? Like not like people watch India Pakistan from morning to night without moving. That's how I used to watch Smite tournaments, and at that time, I used to think when I get older, I'm gonna go and watch the World Championship in the USA once live. I'm gonna go and watch it. And then fast forward 4 years, I was on a plane, sitting and going there to play. And that was like surreal for me because then at that time I thought if 4 years back I told myself that when I grow older, I'm gonna go and watch it live at least once in my life. And today I'm going there to play. So that was insane, right? And that's something that I always wanted to do. And it felt so much better because I was always told that it's a waste of time. And
How was your parents' reaction when you actually got on that
see,
slide?
my parents were very supportive of. I mean, obviously, when they did not know that there was a career possibility or something like that. Obviously, they used to be, but like any parent would be, I guess, if they see their kid spending the entire time. But when they saw the possibility of it being a career, they were very supportive. Like they were saying,
No, but I want to know the exact moment, right? When you were going that day, when you were packing up and going for that flight, how were your parents that day?
I don't remember, but I do remember that they were very happy and proud. That I do remember. And the thing is, of the first time I went was Philippines, right? We went for the Asian regional.
So this was the
championships.
second time you were going.
This is the first time. This is the first time.
Okay.
So first was the regional championships, and my team, like I was the only Indian,
Right.
right? And it was two Singaporeans and I think one Malaysian and one person from Hong Kong. Uh, and there was another Indian as well, and I knew him, and he came to my house as well. But unfortunately, he didn't get. He had visa issues, so he couldn't make it. But then yes, we went to the Philippines. We played the championship. We won there, so we were 2-0 down in the finals, and then we won in a reverse sweep. Right, we came back 3-2, and that was just insane. Like I felt like I was the king of the world, king of my own little world, but whatever. Like, and that was the most insane moment in my life.
Which
because-
year was this?
I don't remember actually. I've forgotten the year that I went to for the championship as well. It's not very clear in my head. But it should be around 2016-ish. So, I think so.
There's nothing mixed in the chai, no?
I'm bad with dates and stuff.
Clearly.
Uh,
But I want to step back because this is something that I have always wondered. Obviously, I have never played pro. My career in gaming was very different to what I guess most gamers' careers in gaming are. Because they start by playing and people discover them, etc. So I did want at some point, hey, I would play games, just play competitively. But how do you get discovered when you're so how did you get discovered?
Right. So that's, I think there's a huge difference between playing a popular game in India, like whichever country you are in. Let's say you're trying to go pro. There's a huge difference in playing a game which is very popular and playing a game which is not that popular. So my competition was not Indians. I mean, there were Indian players, but obviously they were really bad. They were not good at that time, right? So they were not my competition. My competition were people outside. But because I had been such a veteran of the game, I was playing before they had Asian servers, right? And a lot of the Asian players started playing when they had Asian servers, which was probably a couple of years after.
Right.
So I'd been watching and I'd been like religiously following and playing the game for so many years, right? And the thing is, I was just better.
So basically, what happened is when the Asian server came in, you were just one of the top ranked.
Yes, so when the server came in, I was just one of the best, right? And obviously there were many other players who were also playing before the Asian servers came out. But I was just already at the top level in the region because I'd already been playing for a while, and there was the lucky break, I would say, was obviously when it started was just Europe and America, which had the pro scene for Smite. And then I think it was I think I was still in college, right? And till that time, I had never thought that I'll play pro because I knew that there's no way that India is ever going to have a pro scene because it's not a popular game on Smite, right? I had no inclination, no desire. I mean, obviously, I had a lot of desire, but I knew that it was just a fleeting dream. It was just a pipe dream. It would never actually be a reality. And then I was in college one day and I had not slept all day. I was watching something. I ordered some fucking Chinese and was having a stomachache. Anyway, moving on. I just opened my Google Chrome, and I was I just went to the website and I saw news is out for the next competitive season, right? Like next competitive season ka whatever details had come out. And I clicked on it and I saw that there's going to be a Southeast Asian circuit, right? And they're going to introduce Singapore servers and Japanese servers, right? And anyone in Southeast Asia, anyone in East Asia can can officially play those tournaments. I was like, fuck, like fuck college, fuck everything. Now all these years that I've spent playing this game can finally be utilized and can finally be used for something. So immediately I started playing. Actually, the funny story is I had quit Smite. So for 1.5 years, I quit Smite in between, and I had no idea that the Asian servers were already out. So I started playing on the Asian servers 6 months after they were released. Because I had quit Smite, I was completely away from the scene.
So wait. You're saying that when you discovered this news, you were already in the phase of you've quit Smite.
Yes, I'd already quit Smite when I discovered that.
So you just saw this news 6 months after the server came out.
And then I downloaded the game. I was like, "Fuck, there's actually a Singapore server." And then I went in. I started queuing up day in and day out. I was smashing everyone because, and everyone was like, who's this new guy? Who's this new kid in town who's like fucking everyone up, right? Because okay, obviously the player base was not that much.
Right.
So everyone who was playing ranked at that time knew each other.
Right.
From the
Of course.
server,
And you go higher up in the rank, the funnel also is
yeah,
smaller.
so everyone knew each other, and then they suddenly see this new person who's just coming in the queue, solo queuing, and just destroying everyone. And
That must have felt nice also.
of course, and then of course, I created my own team,
Right.
and then we played. We won the whatever the internal tournament was. Then I think we reached out to entity or they reached out to us. I don't remember 100%, but we told them that see. So after we qualified for the Philippines championship, the regional championship, after we qualified for that, this is when I reached out to them saying, "Hey, we have qualified, and there's this regional championship in the Philippines. If we win that, we go to America to play on the main stage for the world championship." And then they instantly picked us up, gave us some salary, and I think that's how it basically started.
Nice. So you approached them rather than them approaching.
I think so because again, like no one knew Smite, right? So
Right. No, but I guess I get it. Like you were already qualified for
yeah,
like the proper official circuits, so that makes it more like likely for the esports.
of course, it was
to be
like say they will already be getting traction in the
Right,
Philippines, and
of
if you
course.
win, they'll be represented
Right.
at a world championship. And when I did qualify for the world championship, at that time, no Indian team in no esport title had ever qualified for a world championship.
right. And
At
so
that time.
and so this entire team that went there, what you formed.
Yes, I created.
Okay.
So every time I've had a team in Smite, has always been something that I've because I have also been the IGL and the coach and whatever for my team.
Are you a very toxic gamer?
Yes,
Like you shout like at night and stuff.
yes, I used to, but now I don't play competitive.
Right, you play auto chess, so you
Yeah.
work. Right.
Yeah, but I used to be one of those toxic. I mean, I don't know if I used to be toxic, but I used to be like, your shit, fucking.
Then you get aggressive.
Uninstall and like fucking throw your PC
Yeah,
out.
I think that's the definition of toxic.
I don't think that's toxic is saying that go and kill yourself.
I think that's a higher degree of toxic, but that's like still toxic. Like, it's like the difference.
But yeah, anyway, I was definitely one of those toxic gamers. I did get banned a couple of times.
Yeah, I think we are very much far into the lane of toxic. Yeah,
Yeah, so
nice,
I was definitely one of those people.
nice.
I actually so before my world championship, right? They banned my account because and the thing is because there were Indians and Chinese, okay, on the Asian server. So there was always this thing between Asians and Chinese and Indians, and Chinese kept being racially abusive to Indians, and Indians were racially abusive to Chinese, and it's something like that
Nice,
happened
nice.
in the game.
Thank you for having a more democratic approach to that.
So obviously I was in a game and some Chinese was calling me something and I called him a Chinese dog or something like that, and then he took the screenshot and he reported me and I got banned. And then I contacted the authority saying that, hey, this person started it and this is
Authorities as in spine.
correct.
Ah.
And then I sent them my screenshots that I had,
Uh,
and then they unbanned me, and then I find. But if they did not unban me, I would probably not be able to go for the championship.
you
So
could make a new account.
no, because I was competitively banned.
Oh,
So
nice.
I was not account banned. I was like person banned.
Person back. Like, doesn't matter how many accounts you create, we know your face.
So that's
Nice.
basically. But yeah, I mean that lasted for 1.5 years.
And then
Almost
you
2
went
years.
outside of gaming, right? You said you had a cafe and then you came back into gaming.
Yeah, so that lasted for about 2 years because they did not see the ROI in the Asian market. They were really bad at marketing. Number one.
Are you talking about Smite?
Yeah, I'm talking about Hi-Res Studios,
Right.
the game, the studio that runs Smite. And so they scrapped the entire esports scene outside America and Europe. So America and Europe is the only place where they run their pro scene now.
Right, right. I
So,
just
so
followed you.
just like that, like
Hmm.
everything that I had worked for had just gotten shattered basically. And yeah, after that, nothing, man. It's just after
Yeah, I mean,
Mm. But what do you think about the gaming industry now? And because you've been here for a while, right? And I'm not talking about just games in general, but the people that make the Indian industry, you've known them for a while, you've been in touch with them. So how have you seen it evolve from, let's say, 10 years back to now? And what do you think, the future is going to be like?
so I think when I came into the Indian game industry had just a lot of bad news
Hmm.
during that period of time. So it was in a slump. It's basically whatever had happened over the last before
Model.
I entered.
Not
No, it was no model.
the guy.
No, this is not
Forsaken.
Forsaken and stuff. This is 2013.
Hmm.
So this is even before a lot of things, right? There was this event. Not a lot of people know about it now, but in 2012, there was this event called Video Game Carnival,
Hmm.
where and this was just one of the catalysts that made us slum. It was not the only thing. But for me, since I was looking back, I saw this was one of the things that kind of affected the scenes. There were multiple others, but I remember this the most. Where this was this mega event where international players, everything came in. The event did not happen on time. There were no PCs. People kept waiting. Some Russian teams, etc., came in. They went into a hotel. After the event did not happen, the hotel was scrapped. They went out for some, I guess, food or something. Their hotel got broken into, like their room got broken into, and things got stolen. And they came back to find out these things. They tried contacting those authorities, the
That's-
event authorities. No one helped them. They weren't compensated for their a lot of things I remember. And this was just one team that I'm talking about. But
This is which game?
this was Video Game Carnival. This was like a convention. Multiple things were supposed to happen. I think CS was one of the games that were supposed to happen, and multiple other games. If you search it up and search 2012, you'll find articles on it from way back in the day. So that's when I came in 2013 August. I remember I bought my PC. That was my first PC because before that I was just playing on my mom's laptop. I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft back then, and I remember would play it in 20 FPS. Right, and when you would go in raids, it's 5 FPS. So I had perfected playing the game in 5 FPS. I was playing LFR and
I think that's what Indians used to do back in the day because
Yeah.
right now, of course, you have Indian servers for all major games, but back then you had to play on Europe or American servers.
I was playing in America.
Yeah, so in every game that we play, Indians used to get between 200 to 400 ping, and we perfected the art of playing on high ping.
Playing on hyping, yeah.
Purposely aiming a little bit off
Yes.
target so that it hits the target because of the
Yeah. I remember doing that in World of Warcraft because I would go in raids and I had just initially I would get kicked out because I was just bad ping high, low FPS. I couldn't go out of the fire during the times when you needed to. But I had played it so many times by that point. I just had this period in time in 2013, 2013 or 2012, where in 6 months I don't remember anything because I was just playing World of Warcraft all day and night. Like, I would wake up, turn on World of Warcraft, and I just go back to sleep. And this started during some summer vacation or something.
I think that's something that all
Yeah.
gamers are guilty of when They wake up in the morning, the first thing they do is they just switch on the
No,
switch
no,
the
this
PC on.
was a proper addict stage for me. It's like one of those. Uh, I woke up at 7. The first thing I do, nothing, no phone, nothing. I would just turn on, like, it was not even like.
You probably don't
Instinct.
sit at that time, but you switch it on.
Yeah, it's
I used to do
instinct.
the same thing.
Right,
Like I
right.
wake up, switch
Yeah.
the PC on, and then I'll go,
Yeah.
brush my teeth and
Yeah.
whatever.
And because your PC back then would need also like 2-3 minutes to start up, like 5 minutes to like start, you would like cook, watch a ad on TV, come back, brush, go to the toilet, everything, and then your PC is on. Okay, great. Uh, but I got in 2013. I bought my PC on my birthday, and that's when I started my blog basically. Because I didn't know, like I'm not I because I played so many games. I was good at games, but I was never the best, if that makes sense. I could compete at the highest level, but I didn't practice. So they knew all the tactics and stuff. It doesn't matter how smart I am in that moment. If you know tactics, you're done, right? Strategies, all of that. Whether it comes to Dota, CS, anything. Um, so I was like, how do I enter the industry? So I started writing about it. Initially, I just wrote about, hey, this trailer came out, that trailer came out. Then it became boring for me. I was getting some views, like I think first month I got 1,000, second month I got 2,000 views entirely on my website. But then I decided, hey, what do I have to lose? Let's write random stuff, right? Whatever I like. So I started covering the Indian indie scene. I started covering anything that was basically considered pop culture. So in my head back then, pop culture was whatever I did, which generally covered gaming, anime, uh, TV shows like Game of Thrones and stuff. Because 2013, I think, is when the first season came out, and AOT as well, Attack on Titan, and then hardware, right? So that's what I considered pop culture, nerdy pop culture, right? So I used to cover that in my website. I had a few friends who kind of came along. They also wanted to cover. There was no concept of websites, all of this gaming thing back then. There were probably about 500 to 1,000 people in the entire country who were working in any official capacity in the game, and I wouldn't consider myself in that 500 or 1,000 people. Like when I say working in official capacity, I mean like us today, working in the gaming industry and getting paycheck out of it. Right? Back then, it was not as common.
Obviously, yeah.
Right. So eventually, I started covering. I remember I started writing about the Indian scene. I started with the Indian indie gaming scene, and I realized there's not a lot of studios or games. There were like 3 games during that time, and a lot of random projects that would come up in like student projects, nothing to talk about. And I didn't know how to cover these stories as well back then because I was just starting out in writing, right? Um, and I used to write about the animation industry in India, and I started writing hit pieces because I started getting a lot of views. Uh, Hit pieces in the sense that okay, this event happens, I would cover it, but in a more critical way. Hey, you could improve this, and I would want to go it, but I was sitting in Calcutta. There was no events in Calcutta. Everything was happening in Mumbai, West or North or South. Nothing happened in East. But I did cover it, and in I think 5 to 6 months of my website, starting my website, I started getting a lot of views. Like I started getting about 30,000 to 50,000 viewership monthly, and this was, and I saw my stats back then, and I was like, this is 70% Indian, which is very surprising because I was like, who's even reading this? Because website is a very one-way traffic, right? You don't know who's reading, who's commenting. So there was no comments, people are reading it. But I was like, wow, this is insane. I did that for a straight 2 years where I then started meeting people because they started seeing websites. But compared to the views, I still met like 50 people or 100 people. Right? Met people who I would interview for to know about the games, who I would interview if they have gone to certain events, like their esports players or their organizers, or people who other people who are kind of writing about games. There were 2, 3 other websites back then. I remember Jags, uh, and a few others. I am forgetting. Back then also AFK Gaming started. I think 2012 is when they started. So I found them out. I was like, hey, how did you start, etc., etc. So that's when I kind of got to know. Fast forward basically 2 years into it, I was like, hey, who are these people? I need to find out, are these bots? I did my first event in Calcutta. I was extremely introverted versus who I am today. Like, I can now talk. Back then, I couldn't. Like, I would freeze up. So, doing an event was not something I wanted to do, but I did it because I needed to know. I was curious. I was like, who are these people? I want to find out. I expected some 50, 60 people to show up. I got the NASCOM. I remember how I got everything together. It was second of like we planned the event for 2nd of October. Since it's a national holiday, I went to NASCOM. There, I knew they had a huge office. I was like, hey, it's a holiday. Can you use your office for an event? They were like, okay. They were a gaming incubator, right? I was like, okay. I went to Nvidia because I knew one of the Nvidia sales reps in East, Atullah, who eventually became my colleague. I asked him, hey, give me 10,000 rupees. I'm doing a gaming event. He was like, what is the ROI? I couldn't explain. I was like, I looked up in Google, what is ROI? I couldn't, I was like, I'll do event branding and stuff. I don't know. He was like, no, I'll give you pizzas instead. So I was like, okay, whatever, give me pizzas and your logo. I went to empty computers back then. I was like, hey, give me 2 PCs. I want to play games at the event, show games. I had a designer friend. I basically designed 3 posters. I remember one was Arkham Batman poster, one was a Witcher 3 poster, and one was Metal Gear Solid poster. So we printed out like 20, 20, 20 each in nice paper. We were like, hey, we'll have some fun stuff, quiz, I'll play 1v1 fighting games. We'll call in this Nvidia guy. He'll speak about Nvidia. I don't know. I had no idea. I was just thinking how to kind of make it interesting and engaging so that people come in and there's a discussion happening and there's something to do. It was not, there was no grand plan or strategy as such.
And then from that, like obviously because you saw it evolve in that way, like what was the turning point you think, like after that slump? And then what was the turning point in which
For the Indian gaming industry?
yeah.
Yeah, PUBG and Geo. That I think everyone can agree. Everyone in the industry today agrees. 2017 or 2016, I think Geo came in. And then 2017, PUBG came in. When PUBG came in, we already knew it was a
But it
thing.
came out on PC first.
Yeah, but even in PC, it was a thing. You remember? Because Battle Royale, that was the first Hunger Game style game where people didn't camp because there was a circle. That was the basic concept, right? Because otherwise there were a lot of battleground games, but what would happen is those games would run for 2 days because everyone is camping
There
in
was
their
no
own
concept of,
corners.
like,
Yeah, it was Rust. I think Rust was one of the most popular back then before PUBG. And PUBG came in, and we knew okay, PUBG is a hit, and it was already a trending. So we started doing events in as Nvidia, and then we saw it pop up because I think the answer is obvious, right? Everyone has a phone. The concept of a PC, personal computer, does not exist in India. It's a family computer, right? So everyone had a phone. They could install PUBG. They felt it's their own where they could game at any time. They were seeing content creators also make PUBG. I think it's a combination of internet, the right game that was accessible because you didn't need to know a lot to kind of understand
Yeah,
PUBG.
because, I mean, generally see how games were in the past. Like if you take examples like League of Legends or
Right.
Dota or World of Warcraft
Right.
or CS:GO,
Right.
those games have a learning curve, right?
Right.
Like you just can't you can't just dive into it.
Right.
You can't just download and start playing.
Right.
But with PUBG, it was just like plug and play, right? Download and start playing, like mindless. Just go around, shoot, hide, and
Right.
and so they dumb down the understanding of game. Obviously, now the thing with PUBG is it's easier to learn but harder to master, right?
Correct.
Because it's easy for everyone to be the best is more difficult in a way,
Right.
And because there's so many people playing, but they did dumb down the beginning, the onboarding for the game, right?
Yeah,
So that
I
it
agree.
gets
I agree because now that you said CS:GO, I was kind of thinking no shooting games can existed, but CS:GO does have like lineups and stuff.
yeah, obviously.
So
And it's not as easy as you can't run and shoot
Right,
and all
right,
those
right,
things.
Yeah.
It has a spray and a lot of things that which PUBG.
One of the things that PUBG also did, now that you say it, is that initially when you get into the game, you're just given bots. You're not given real players. So you also feel that kind of power fantasy kind of creeping in. You feel good killing people. But I think it's a combination of these three. The fact that creators also got involved. The fact that kind of it just became accessible. Suddenly you had I still remember because I saw that curve, right? I was there in 2013 when there was about 1,000 people working. Then fast forward to 2016 when there's about 4,000 to 5,000 people working, and everything is still about PC gaming because that's where the Indian gaming market was. I'm talking about the mid-core and hardcore, right? Not the casual. By that time, casual gaming was already a thing in India. But in 2017, by that time, PUBG Mobile came in, and that's when PUBG Mobile came in, PUBG PC was already hype, right? Gamers like the creators did not come in because they saw PUBG Mobile. I think they saw PUBG PC come to mobile, and then they were like, "Oh, this is nice," right? They came in, and then it kind of blew up from there. Like suddenly, we had a 10x increase in the industry.
I would say more than that.
Right. I think we had about 40-50 million gamers.
So, see,
and then
in
we
terms,
straight went.
in terms of like players and all of the and people who are actually interested in gaming, India is obviously at an all-time high, right?
Right.
But what do you think about people who run the industry, or people, people who, let's say, professional players who are trying to become better, or basically represent the country on an international stage. Like, where do you think they lie, and has there been any evolution? Uh,
No, I think in terms of who run the industry, we are still in the same place we have been in 2013. It's still corporates who are not in tune with what gaming actually is. This is still a fact in India. Versus, say, America, where if you just go and look up a interview by Gabe Newell, he cannot stop talking about Dota 2. He plays it regularly. He's a consumer of his products. He's a consumer of the product he's also selling to a lot of other people. I don't think the people who are leading the gaming industry, 99% of them are consumers of their own products. And so if they are not, they're obviously disconnected from the experience that the consumer has in India. Right. I think that we are still in the same place because that's such a generational thing. I think we are still like 5, 6, 10 years maybe away from that. Because if you just see when most gamers got created, it's still 2017.
See, I mean, I've never actually been in touch with professional players in the Indian gaming industry because, again, like, even though I was a professional gamer from India, my trajectory and people were very different, right? They were mostly non-Indians. But what I understand from an outsider point of view is that people in the Indian gaming industry, people are here, professionals are here to make money. They're more content creators than people actually, playing to become better, and people actually putting in the effort to represent the country at a national stage, right? And I think there's lots of excuses that we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the opportunities. But I feel like all of that is there, but people just are satisfied making more money by making content and becoming these so-called godlike figures. I don't mean godlike the brand, but godlike figures, and becoming these heroes that are worshipped, right? Because I think Indian gaming industry, like, hero worship is like on a different level altogether. I think people are more content, like the so-called pro players, professional players, and teams. They're just more interested in making content, and I think that's what the organizations that they play for also push them to do. Like, they don't actually care whether they're winning on an international stage or not. They don't care if they're qualifying or not. The only thing they care about is the content they are making and the money that's coming in because of that content, right? That's what I feel.
I think it's a combination. I don't think it's like a single kind of thing. I think the infra thing is to an extent still true.
What thing?
Because infrastructure. Because we are sitting in Bangalore, right? And both of us, I've lived in Kolkata for the last 11 years. One of the reasons I had to move out of Guwahati to Kolkata back in
See, you're talking about the regular public, right? But let's say pick the top 5 teams in India.
Right.
Okay. Now, you agree with me that on the fact that they have the best possible resources, right?
Of course, yeah.
So then what's the excuse there?
I think again, it's not a kind of easy thing to say, because okay, there's two kinds. 100%, I agree with you. There's, at the end of the day, everyone's looking for money. Let's not kid ourselves. Everywhere you go, if you cannot fulfill some kind of like hey, if you're putting in X money in, you have to get Y money out. This is what any business owner should be thinking, and is also thinking.
Right.
I think, but however, the problem is when you only think that, right? When your entire viewpoint is only
And
service.
exactly, that's for the organization's owner to think about, right?
Correct.
It's not for the players to think about. But what I think is that the players are also more interested
Yeah,
in
of course,
making
of course.
fucking content and unboxing videos and fucking jacking off
Is it because
to actually
no? Because you have to see this, right? Here's the interesting thing: being an esports player after a certain age means you have to. After a certain age, you cannot remain in esports.
No, of course.
It's but if you see, okay, look at what is. Think of it in terms of wealth creation, right? Being an esport player means you racking up your skills in, say, something like Smite, etc., playing that game for 3,000, 3,000, 5,000 hours, and then being really good at it. But something like yours case might happen, right? Where the game might go away entirely, or maybe like how in India PUBG was banned.
No, see, I am completely see. If today I had 100,000 followers on, if I had built that, I would 100% be monetizing that to make
Right.
shitloads of money, right?
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's
Right.
fine. But my problem is that, if you're posing as a professional player, right, and you have the best resources available to you,
Go on.
and your first priority is not to actually represent the country and like go forward, but it's like, have you ever thought of like someone who's going for the Olympics, or someone who's going
No, I understand what you're saying.
someone who plays football, or someone who plays cricket? Do you think like they're more interested in making content, or they're more interested in beating Pakistan and Australia and all these people?
No, I understand. You're saying, hey, if you identify as an esports player, why is 90% of your time in making content? Essentially?
Exactly.
And which is a thing in India. But like, I see, the thing is, I understand where you're coming from. And
Because otherwise, how is anyone going to take?
gaming, like the esports side
So
of it.
number one, how is the general perception of Indians towards gaming going to change? And number two, no one outside India is going to take Indian players seriously. They'll say there's a lot of money in Indian gaming, right? There's a lot of money in India. They're not going to say, oh fuck, we're going to play that Indian team tomorrow,
Right.
right? There's like
Yeah, I get it. What you said.
100 Thieves is not sitting there thinking, oh fuck, I'm going to play Godlike tomorrow, right? We need to prepare for them. Like no one gives a fuck because they know they're all fucking content creators. They're not players.
I mean, I get where you're coming from as an esports player. I understand. But I think it's a mix of a combination of. I don't think in India, for example, my experience in competitive gaming is in India, no one plays with strategy, right? There's always that. I think there's more because, okay.
And they're in over their heads in the sense that they think that they are, because see, again, it's like the attention that they get from the public, right? They have so much attention and they're on such a high pedestal that they think that they're the best, right?
Right.
And the thing is, they have nothing to back it up with, other than the fact that they have a lot of money and following.
Yeah, I think that's more infuriating for me. I think success in Indian gaming
Yeah.
is now basically how much money you can make
Exactly.
and how much followers you have.
And how many people watch your stream?
Correct. I think that's what is more annoying to me rather than say. So I understand why people do that, because India is a poor country. Everyone wants to make money, and when they have a taste of that money, when you're getting things that you've always seen your Bollywood folk have, or those streamers or content creators have, you automatically kind of switch gears because you're like, hey, one place is not giving you money, what the other one is doing. I think in a lot of ways, foreign countries do have that security. Like even so, obviously, because I will tell you what I had. Right, I never gone to college. I started my blog immediately after school. One of my biggest fears, and this was a fear that stems out of being in Indian society rather than a rational fear. I had no idea what I would be doing. I thought I would be a beggar. Think after 5 years, Belgacha metro station, I have this spot where I know, okay, you can get 100 rupees through the day just sitting there. Because when you're 20, suddenly in India, you have to think about things like how do I take care of my parents, family? How do I make sure I have some kind of savings going? How do I make sure I'm preparing myself for, say, after 10, 20 years? I don't think a lot of Americans or Europeans have these fears, right? Because just think about it, right? Most Americans, Europeans have parents who have a house that is already worth like 300K or $1 million or $2 million. They have a savings account that has 50, 60, 100K. There's a lot of debt there. But they do have assets that they can go back to. A lot of Indians cannot say the same. If you look at where most of these say same thing, like most of these creators came
So
from,
you're saying you're
esports
trying to
came
say
from.
that all these people who become money hungry and all these professional players, it happens because they start with limited. They start their life with limited resources, and once they get the taste of what stardom feels like,
What money feels like, what money and
that's
security feels like. I think stardom is it's one level more, but I think one of the basic necessities of a human living a stress-free life is security, money, and just knowing that okay,
But then
for
does
the next
that
6 months, 1 year,
does
is
that
safe.
justify like
It doesn't justify.
losing your
No,
entire
no.
passion and whatever
See,
you
see,
built up?
it doesn't justify. I am not saying okay, they're right in what they're doing. They might be, or they might not be. That's not where I can comment on. But I can understand why they're going in that direction, right? Because again, what changed it for you? Like, let's talk about say your parents, right? At least I know what changed it for my parents. The second, third month when I got a salary, I saw it. I saw like when I got my first job offer, I got it in Nvidia. I had no experience. I stumbled in that job. I had no idea how I got that. Right, that's the first thing. But a lot of people with degrees want to go into a place like that. When I got my thing, I told my mom, like first thing I got my offer letter, I signed it, I sent it by email. I was like, first person I called was my mom. My mom was like, hey, forget all of this, do your graduation, and then think about jobs and everything. That was my mom's first thing when she heard I got a job at a place like Nvidia because she didn't know what Nvidia is. She cares again what you said, right? A parent cares about their child's security, and that's kind of drilled into our head even if we want it or not, whether we are consciously thinking about it or not. That's constantly drilled not just by our parents but by our peers, by people who are older to us. There will be exceptions, no doubt. There will always be exceptions of people who are supporting you, but most people are not. That's the reality of the figure, right? So when you finally get it, and when you finally see their perception, people around you who have been saying, because that's a common trope in India. I think the common trope is you start gaming, you love gaming, and then everyone around you tells you, hey, gaming is not cool. What will you do? What is the future? There's nothing here. It's a waste of time. You lose your eyes, etc., etc., etc. Right? But that flip switch is when you get your first paycheck.
Yeah, I mean that when someone can see that okay, this can be a
Yeah,
viable.
and I think my second flip switch was when I got my paycheck after a year, because that's when they realize, oh, it's stable, right? And that's when they cannot say anything anymore. Suddenly it goes from an entire 10, 15 years of your parents saying this is useless to suddenly they can't tell you that it's useless, because what ground are they standing on when they make that accusation, right? Suddenly it flips. And that flip, I mean, that's where I come from, right? Because I've seen these stories so many times. And that's where a story that every Indian gamer who has found some kind of success in India will tell you always that, hey, I started with my relatives and my parents saying, this is garbage. Do not do this. You're wasting your time. To then, oh, now they're very supportive because they see money. Well, look, that's not a. So when you're asking me, hey, just does it justify them changing their ideals uh, because they're getting money? The thing is, that's how India is. If you look at it on a larger picture, all our parents had ideals that gaming is garbage. When they saw the money, they changed. They flipped in a second.
That's a little bit. I understand what
I
you're
mean,
saying, but
it's a different, but we are not looking when we see these things. We are not. It's an observation from me, right? Because I was very fascinated by this. I don't, and people make surface level observations, but there is this effect on us,
So
even when we don't think about it, right? And that happens. Like when you see someone changing because they suddenly see that money, even if you don't think about it or don't do it, that still happens because we are still learning. Whether we are learning subconsciously or consciously, we are still learning from people around us, and this is a common thing. So I see why it happens. Doesn't justify it. I
what
don't
do
think
you
it will change anytime soon either.
So yeah, that was what my final question was going to be. What do you think that there is a future for Indian esports? I'm not talking about the Indian gaming industry because I have no doubt in my mind that it's only up from here,
Right.
and it's already quite big. But what do you think about the Indian esports industry? Do you think that has a future, or is India ever going to be uh, any a country which anyone takes seriously when it comes to competing?
This is a tough question because the basic
My
fact
answer
is
is no.
no. There has to be why, right? I guess
I
you're
just don't.
saying
I just don't think people have the time.
I
From
don't think
what
it's
I can
about
see,
drive,
I
right?
mean, it can be. You might say that's a very narrow point of view, or that's a very I don't know, like snobbish point of view. But that's what I think, at least from what I can see right now.
See, for me, it's not a thing about drive. There's two factors. What people don't realize is gaming is a privilege. Still, like
Basically, yeah, let's move on from that because obviously not everyone can afford a PC.
right.
Not everyone can,
And then the
but I'm
second
talking about the people who can afford a PC, who have a PC, who are gamers, and
right.
who start gaming thinking, okay, I'll go pro one day.
I think that will eventually come in. I think that will eventually, not immediately. I don't think in next 1 to 3 years, but in the next 5 to 10 years time frame, you will see it. But if you're saying who has to be the catalyst, I think the people who will be the catalyst here are esport or owners. There are 3 4 esport or owners that do take risks in India, but I think see it's a common known fact that esport teams don't make money,
Yeah,
right?
they obviously, and Indian teams are.
And even make less money.
Yeah, but I feel like Indian teams are probably making more money to at least break even because of all the shit that they do.
Again, that's not. I don't believe that because just look at who are the teams and who are the owners. Every team owner in India comes from a background of privilege, and they are using their privilege in order to put that money into gaming, which is great. I'm just taking into account. Just think about top 5 teams in India. Look at their owners. They've come from a position where they have capital to sink it in gaming. If they did not sink it in gaming, those teams would not exist. Straight up, they would exist for a year, 2 years max. They'd shut shop because they don't have money to sink it, right? But eventually, I think these owners are the ones who will take risks. I don't know how they will make money. Maybe NFTs. I don't know. But somewhere down the line, when they start making in money, maybe they take bolder risks. Maybe that's when the focus shifts. I know the focus right now is more content creation. I do understand when you're coming in, hey, don't make your esport players make content all day, which is fair. That's one of the reasons I think. My biggest reason as to why I don't think Indian gaming teams don't last in international plays because I don't think we play by strategy. Like you just can see the gameplay right in CS:GO or
Yeah, it's just.
Valorant. Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of things, but yeah, that's.
I think the biggest factor, if I had to put it at a very high level, I think it's strategy because Indian gamers hand-eye movement, coordination, all of that, reaction time. I think we have mechanical skills. I don't think there's a dearth of that. I think pure raw talent. There's a lot of talent in India. Just look at people like SK Rossi and stuff. But pure raw talent at an individual level and playing at a team are two different things,
They're
right?
different.
And the second thing is, I don't think we have cracked that part yet. I think we have found our pure raw talents across the country. I don't think we have found.
No, but that's what you
Team
see.
synergies.
See, you name people. You said SK Rossi.
Right.
You can literally count on your fingers how many of those.
Yeah,
are there.
right. Yeah,
And that's not because we don't have infrastructure opportunities, but that's because people are more interested in content creation and making money rather than sticking to what they started with.
yeah,
But yeah, okay, I think that's all.
yeah. Nice
How
discussion.
was it? How was it?
Right. अच्छा